Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto King of Monsters in Monster Hunter. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by KingNeo, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. The sun was setting low in the sky over the village of Konoha, making it look as if it were on fire. Many of the merchants started to bring in their merchandise from outside their shops. Running through the busy streets was a young boy, no older than 10. The boy had tan, sun-kissed skin and hair that appeared to be woven from gold itself, as well as blue eyes that rivaled the brightest sapphires. To any female that met him, he was seen as an angelic beauty, as if carved out of stone. He wore a cream-colored shirt with a red spiral on the front and brown cargo pants, both fluttering slightly as he ran. This boy was one Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, although the last part was unknown to him and many in the village. While he was young, he was quite well known to the village, being a pariah to the men, but extremely beloved by the women. I'm late, I'm so late," he panted out, running. He pushed his little legs as fast as they would go, desperate to try and make it on time to the Hyuga compound. Despite Naruto being an orphan since his birth, he was welcomed with open arms by every clan in Konoha. While he was unsure why the clan heads insisted it was due to his mild-mannered and caring nature, definitely not his near-otherworldly handsomeness. Okay, that feels weird typing since he's 10 in at the moment. Currently he was attempting to reach the Hyuga compound on time to have dinner with the head family. Spotting an alleyway, he smirked, turning and darting down it. Suddenly a figure landed behind him, roughly grabbing him by his neck. Before he could even scream, a funny-smelling cloth covered his mouth. Within a few minutes of struggling as hard as he could, his eyes started to feel heavy and darkness overtook him. But that is assaulter sighed, gagging his mouth with a cloth and tying his hands and feet before putting him in a sack and leaping off, leaving almost not trace. Almost. 8 hours later, near the Valley of the End. Arriving at the rendezvous point, the Kunoichi spotted her employer by the edge overlooking the turbulent waters. Walking behind him, she merely dropped the sack to announce her presence. Turning, her employer revealed herself to be Shinbaku Shinoba, a high-ranking member of the civilian council. Looking down at the bag, he smirked evilly as the Kunoichi opened it to reveal Naruto bound and gagged. Nodding to her, he took out a decently sized sack and opened it, showing several glittering gems and gold coins. Smiling at her, the Kunoichi then turned, waving to the council member. "Now that bitch of a Hokage and her whores aren't protecting you," Shinbaku glared at the boy. "Time to enact true justice, demon." Taking out a large knife, he smiled with glee as the child thrashed against his bonds. Grabbing him by his hair, he plunged the blade into the child's abdomen without remorse. Naruto screamed in pain against his gag as Shinbaku stabbed him again, repeating the process several times over. "Do you know why I do this, brat?" Naruto weakly looked up at him, tears running down his face and blood soaking his clothes. "As you know, 10 years ago the demon Kyuubi attacked our village. In that attack my beloved wife and daughter were both killed, but even worse, that animal destroyed my shop. All the money I had to spend to rebuild it. That is why I do this, because you are the Kyuubi." But the final roar, he shoved the knife into Naruto's chest before throwing him off the cliff edge, smiling as he watched the boy hit the water below. His joy was short-lived as he heard a loud thunk behind him. Turning to the noise, his eyes widened in horror as he saw the dead body of the Kunoichi he hired. Within an instant he was forced to his knees with several blades pointed at his body. In front of him stood the Hokage herself, in full armor and a face of pure rage, causing his heart to race in fear. "I will ask you this only once," Haruko Sarutobi spoke in a tone that promised violence if answered wrong. "Where is Naruto?" Shinbaku only smirked. "Well, after stabbing that demon a few times I got bored and sent him for a little swim." His smirk was short-lived as instantly the air around him seemed suffocating, Haruko's face becoming even more enraged than before. Pulling her hand back, she then punched him hard enough to send teeth flying. "Take this scum to T&I. Tell them no mercy." Her commanding voice sent chills down the Kunoichi's spines as they followed orders, lest they anchored the wrath of the Kami no Kunoichi. Shinbaku started to scream and thrash in fear, stating how they could not do this to him as he was dragged away. "Inu. I want you and your dog scouring every inch of the coast, am I understood?" "Yes ma'am," and Anbu with a dog mask bowed, immediately getting to work. Among the entire group, one thought was shared between every individual. "Naruto-kun, please don't leave us yet." Hours had passed and there was no sign of Naruto anywhere. Despite the best efforts of the Inuzuka and Pakin's pack, Naruto's scent could not be picked up more than a few miles downriver. To the majority of Konoha was absolutely devastating, with the citizens calling for blood. With that, Haruko gladly and the execution of Shinbaku was made public, granted that was always gonna be his fate. Haruko stood by the window in her office, standing stiff as she gazed out at the village she loved dearly. A knock came from the door, causing her bark out enter. With that, her old teammate Danier walked in, her cane tapping the floor with each step. Please tell me this isn't true Haruko, she looked at her old teammate. While Danier was normally a stoic woman, she was no exception to loving young Naruto dearly. She saw the boy as an innocent light in the darkness of the world and would have spoiled him rotten if she could have. It pained Haruko to see her friend in such a state and merely looked down in sadness to answer the question. Danier dropped her cane as her hand flung to her mouth, tears flowing freely from her one good eye. Seeing this, Haruko rushed to her friend and hugged her tight. Tears slid down both the elders' faces as they fell to their knees, mourning the boy they both viewed as their grandchild. Unknown location. Warm rays of light shone down on the stiff body on Naruto, causing him to grunt as he woke up. Looking at his hands, he started to tear up before covering his eyes and crying hard. He was alone, lost, in pain, and wearing nothing but blood-stained, soaking wet clothes. But what hurt more was learning what he was. He was so lost in his sorrow he didn't notice the land he was on started to move. "Young one, why do you cry?" A deep gravelly voice boomed in his head, causing him to jump in fear. Searching frantically around, he started to panic seeing nobody around him. The ground he was on was hot and very rocky, with magma bubbling to the surface in pockets. "Do not fear me, young one, for I mean you no harm." Taking a deep breath, Naruto calmed himself as much as he could. "Who are you? Where are you? Where am I?" He called out, desperate for answers with fear in all his words. "Calm, young one, and brace yourself." Naruto raised an eyebrow and was about to ask what the voice meant when he found wind rushing past him at great speeds. Buckling slightly, he fell to all fours to keep himself up. When the rushing wind stopped, he hesitated a second before slowly glancing up. He then gasped in both fear and amazement, coming face to face with an absolutely massive creature's face. Naruto understood then, this was not just an ordinary volcano. This was a living, breathing monster. His mouth was frozen open as the monster looked down at him, its full red eyes staring into his very soul. "Who are you, young one? And why are you here?" Naruto looked up at the beast and gulped before telling the living mountain what had transpired at the cliff. Tears once again ran down his cheeks by the end of his tale as the monster contemplated all he had heard. I see. I am sorry to hear of what you had to endure, young one. I am Zora Magdaros, an elder dragon on a journey to the new world. A small council of myself and other elders is to take place. We shall figure out what we shall do with you there." Naruto looked up at the beast, shaking in slight fear. He then turned his back to the monster and gasped at the sight before him. There stood a singular, massive tree with its roots stretching for hundreds of miles. Zora smiled softly at his starstruck face and continued his slow trek. "Rest, youngling. Your body has still not fully healed and you need to be well rested." Nodding his head nervously, he did as Zora told him, laying down on the warm rocky skin of the Goliath. Closing his eyes, he found himself quickly falling asleep, the movements of Zora calming him, slightly aiding in his sleep. Elder recess, hours later. Waking once again, Naruto stared amazed at a cave filled with crystals glowing with an almost otherworldly power. A deep growl caused his heart to start beating rapidly in fear as he slowly turned to its source. Freezing in place, he shuddered as not one, but 4 beings stood behind him on Zora Magdaros, with 3 more on the ground looking at him. Naruto could not stop himself from shaking in fear at the feeling of pure power radiating off each being. Seeing his discomfort and fear, one of the beast, a glorious white unicorn with lightning dancing off it, slowly approached him. Just as he had with Zora, a voice resonated in his head, however this one being much softer. "Hello, young one, you need not to fear us. We shall not harm you." The creature's tone was feminine and much smoother than that of Zora. It gave Naruto the feeling of talking to a nun or monk, he would even dare to go so far as say a mother. "Allow me to introduce myself and my companions. I am Kirin, you already have met Zora Magdaros, and the ones behind me are Kashalade Aura." A silver dragon raised and bowed its head to the youngling. Nergigante, the demonic-looking dragon with massive horns, growled deeply. Teostra, a massive lion with wings, nodded slightly. Valhazak, a disturbing dragon with rotting flesh, snorted and raised its head proudly. Gugmazios, a huge black dragon covered in tar with a massive spear stabbed into its back, nodded. Kalftereth, the wingless dragon with massive horns and a gold cape covering its tail, nodded, and Delameter, the final one of the group, an absolutely gargantuan serpent with arms, stared down at the boy before nodding. Staring at all the creatures before him in awe, Naruto found himself lost for words. He felt as if he was in the presence of literal gods, some of whom were not happy at all with his presence. "What should we do with this boy?" A savage and brutal sounding voice echoed in his head, making Naruto turn to its source, Nergigante. Shuddering at the demonic-looking dragon's gaze, Naruto found himself unable to speak. "We shall do nothing, Nergigante. It is not our place to choose," Zora's gravelly voice bellowed, causing Nergigante to snarl. "His kind hunted us like animals. Slaughtered us and countless other species like livestock. We found our own land for a reason." The scars and memories from the past caused the elders all to glance down as painful memories bubbled to the surface. Naruto looked down before raising himself and walking over to the spike-covered dragon. Nergigante let out a low growl as the boy approached, lowering his head meet him at eye level. Keeping his head down, Naruto did one thing that shocked each elder to their very core. He wrapped his small arms around the extinction dragon's snout, hugging him. Nergigante himself was stunned more than the others, as he has never known a gentile human touch. He was unable to move, unable to think as he sensed the pure intentions of the boy. They remained frozen like this until a gentle chuckle entered their minds. "Well now, this certainly is interesting," the voice spoke in a regal tone, one that still echoed power. Letting go of Nergigante, the young boy looked around for its source when a shining blue light caught his and the elder's attention. From the sapphire light a new dragon appeared, holding itself much like royalty would. "I am surprised, Zora, for you of all being to break the rules is rather amusing. And to see such a pure soul at that." The dragon flapped its wings, rising itself to the other dragons, all of whom bowed to it. Lowering its head to the boy's gaze, they stared into each other's eyes, sapphires meeting amber. After a few moments the blue dragon raised its head and smiled to the young child. "I am Zenigi, young one, an elder dragon goddess," she paused, giggling softly at the boy's starstruck face. Naruto couldn't believe it, he was in the presence of beings that can wipe out everything if they so wished, and here was a literal goddess before him. Lowering her head to meet the boy's gaze, Zeno once again spoke. "I sense within you not only great power, but a pure heart. No fear, not hate, a righteous sense of honor and justice. A being whom is finally worthy of a gift I have wished to bestow on humanity for some time now." The other elder dragons looked shocked at her words, with Nergigante immediately voicing his thoughts. "Lady Zeno, are you certain that this child is worthy of it? That this human is even deserving of it?" Zeno turned her head to the black dragon, causing him to shake slightly at her gaze. While he still despised humans with a passion, he too had to agree the boy's soul was a pure one. And the way he approached him with no fear and pure intentions made him think about the boy differently. The sapphire goddess merely nodded to him before turning her attention back to the boy. "Indeed I am. But only if he is willing to accept it," lowering her head, gazing into the boy's eyes again. "Are you willing, boy?" Naruto tried wrapping his mind around what was being told to him. He was worth of a power from a goddess, but what if he started to crave more of it? Haruko had always told him power can be addicting, and that addiction could drive a person down a dark evil path. Balling his hands into fist at the thought of the power corrupting him, he started to shake slightly. The elders saw this and understood his fear, but felt as if they could do nothing. Yet Nergigante slowly walked up to him and placed one of his clawed hands in the boy's back, causing him to look at the black dragon. Seeing the calm, composed look in his eyes caused Naruto to stop shaking and calm down a bit before looking at the ground. Thinking for a few short moments, he turned to smile at Zeno. "Well, when do we get started?" His voice was dripping with excitement, causing the elders to smile at his words. Zanagieva then gently placed two claws on him, one on his forehead and the other on his chest. A small burning sensation entered Naruto's body as a bright sapphire light started glowing. Zanagieva spoke only a single word to answer. "Now." The wind swept through a dry canyon trail close to the border on Mizuno Kuni, causing some dust and dirt to be kicked up. A single-headed figure walked down the path humming a soft tune to themselves. Even with their face obstructed by the hood, it was clear the figure was a male due to the broad shoulders. Nothing could be seen of his attire other than a large black trench coat covered his entire body. He continued to hum softly as he crossed an old bridge, careful to avoid any holes in it. The loud noise behind him caused a sly smirk to appear as he stepped off the bridge, causing him to turn towards its source. On the other side was a group of 4 women, all panting slightly. Seeing their prey caused large predatory smiles to cross their lips. The apparent leader, a woman dressed in clearly stolen Anbu gear and slashed out Suna forehead protector, stepped forward to address the man on the other side of the bridge. "Oi. Now why did you go and run there? All we said was that you'd have to pay to go any further." Their group sneered and snickered at that, knowing they were just going to kill the man after he paid them. He stared at the group before speaking out in a voice that surprised the women. "I am sorry, but I sadly do not have any money. I am merely a traveler and a type of zoologist, if you will." His voice caused the group to shiver slightly as it was rather androgynous, making some wonder if they were dealing with an actual man. The leader narrowed her eyes, and her smirk became more predatory. "Okay then," she started to cross the bridge, causing her group to follow. "Maybe we can just ransom you off, if not then we have a new target for training." The group's approach did not intimidate the man as they thought it would have, rather he started to chuckle before laughing out. "Hey, what's so funny?" A Kunoichi growled out at the man, laughing at them as if he was untouchable. He stopped his laughter, turning into soft chuckles. "What's funny is how easy it can be to trap you, missing nin." His words caused the group to raise an eyebrow before one of them noticed a small line of smoke from beneath the bridge. When she looked over, her eyes widened in surprise and she gasped, causing the others to look over as well, resulting in similar reactions. None of them realized when they stepped on the bridge it sank a bit as they just assumed it was from age. Turns out that wasn't the case as they saw on both ends what appeared to be giant explosive scales. Shit. And with that said the bridge ends exploded, causing the structure to start plummeting to the ground. The Rujnins attempted to jump out, pushing as much chakra as they could manage into their legs. The leader of the group even used one of her subordinates as a push-off point to gain a few extra feet. Smirking as she started reaching the canyon edge, she started to plot how to torture the man for embarrassing her this way, her two remaining companions sharing her thought process. However, a powerful bellowing from above chased those thoughts out of their heads. Turning to look up, the last thing the creatures saw was the immense shadow of a creature stabbing its claws through two of them and wrapping its jaws around the leader. Landing not too far away from the man, it dropped the woman in its mouth before rearing its head back, letting out an extremely loud roar of triumph. With a smile, the man made his way over to the body of the deceased leader as the creature lowered its head to his level. Patting the huge beast's snout gently. "Thank you, my friend, now let me find the scroll I need and the rest is all yours." The creature bellowed softly and seemed to nod in understanding. He kneeled in front of the woman's body and proceeded to check any pouches on her person as the monster started devouring the other two carcasses. Finding what he was after, he gave a whistle to the behemoth and stepped away so he wouldn't be eaten by accident. He watched in a bit of morbid fascination as the beast swallowed the woman's corpse whole. It then let out a howling bellow before taking to the sky once more as blue smoke covered it before it disappeared. "I will never understand basil juice," he smirked, shaking his head lightly. Well, that was something. A voice caused him to jump and turn to its source before gulping lightly. Behind him sitting on a rock was a Kenweichi, smirking at him. "So what was that thing?" "I'm only asking so the Mizukage can know in my report." He stepped back, confused at her words. He had met the Mizukage before, claiming a different bounty for her, but why was one of her troops spying on him? "Now I suggest you come quietly with me, for whatever reason she wants your ass back alive." Her smirk only widened as she drew her two blades, both sparking with lightning, and Ringo Amari always catches her prey. Clenching his teeth, he started thinking of a way he could get out of this without a fight. A strong gust of wind rushed between the two, causing his hood to fly back, showing Ringo the face of one Naruto Uzumaki, back from the grave after 7 years. His once adorable round face was now chiseled and lacking any baby fat, with his whisker marks being darker, a bit more pronounced. His sun-kissed hair had become a large spiky mane with two small braids framing the sides of his face, think the Admiral's hairstyle, and his sapphire eyes pierced Ringo's soul with an almost ethereal glow. Under his coat he wore a black sleeveless muscle shirt with his shoulders and chest, having dark red armor with a scale pattern covering them, with black and tan camo pants with multiple pockets tucked into steel-toed boots that had armor covering his shins and knees. 1. The blush crept onto Ringo's face before she shook her head lightly. "Well damn, I can see why she wants you back. Now be a good boy and hey." Her sudden shout was due to him taking off at high speeds, especially for a male. Naruto ran as fast as he could manage, using years of living in the wilderness to his advantage as he navigated the rocky terrain. Looking back, he saw Ringo was chasing after him and was not too far behind. Silently cursing, he tried reaching the border, knowing where it was from studying maps of the area. He was about to make a leap when a bola wrapped itself around his legs, causing him to stumble and fall forward, with Ringo now looming over him, panting softly. Smiling down at her quarry, she bent down to tie his hands, giggling excitedly at the thought of whatever reward the Mizukage would give her. It could be anything: money, powerful jutsu, or maybe even a night with the stud below her now. Wrapping her hands around his wrist, she smirked at his scowl, showing his sharp teeth. "Look dude, you're clearly beat, so just take it easy and let me ow." Once again she was cut short by Naruto, only this time it was from him slamming his forehead into her upper lip, causing it to bleed profusely and making her stumble back a bit. Her lips curled back in pure rage at him as he dared to attack her. "You bastard. I was going to leave you unharmed, but now I'm gonna have to beat some manners into you." She charged him as he had finished freeing himself of the bowl around his legs and managed to jump out of the way of her charge. She snarled and turned, pulling out her kiba blades to cut him up a bit and teach him respect. As she was about to charge again, she stopped when she heard him speak with no fear in his voice whatsoever. "I don't know what the Mizukage wants with me, and I don't want to fight you." He then got into a fighting stance with his fist held in front of him and stood on the balls of his feet, "But I will defend myself." Ringo growled softly before laughing out. This weakling was gonna fight her. He may be lucky enough to take down some Rujnin, but she was a well-trained killing machine. Her laughter continued until she looked him in the eye, the words immediately dying in her throat. She's seen the look he was giving her many times before, and each time nearly costing her everything. She smirked widely, while not expecting much from the man. She knew he would at least put up a decent challenge. "Show me a good fight now." She charged at high speed only for him to charge and meet her halfway, her swords narrowly missing him as he ducked under her. Swinging his arm up, Naruto attempted to strike a quick blow, only for her to dodge and try to sweep his legs out. Jumping to avoid this, Naruto pulled out his large hunting knife, parrying one of her swords that would have struck him in the arm. Swinging his knife at her only to have it parried, he was forced to twist to the side to avoid a stab at his abdomen. Ringo snarled at him, swinging her other sword at him, only for it to again be blocked by his knife. Ringo had to admit she was slightly impressed, this man was able to keep up with her a bit. Her thoughts were cut short when Naruto slammed a fist into her gut hard, sending her back a bit. Coughing hard, she wiped her mouth, seeing a small amount of blood on it. Growling deeply, she turned to him. This is a new feeling. Pride in someone else. Unfortunately, it's overshadowed by all this unyielding rage. Bursting towards him, Ringo let out an enraged shout. Naruto gasped in surprise, barely managing to dodge her full attack, instead receiving a large gash on his side. Grunting loudly, he turned to Ringo just in time to see her lunge at him again, shouting, "Nobody makes me bleed. Especially not some lowly man." His eyes widened, barely ducking her attack. Leaning back to avoid a downward slash, he shuddered a bit, seeing the murderous intent in her eyes. Jumping back, he panted softly and curled his fist tightly. "I need to end this now, but that means… no. I have to get out of this. Consequences be damned." Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on his curled fist. Smirking insanely, Ringo charged, thinking he had let his guard down. Her smirk quickly faded, seeing his left forearm be enveloped by the same sapphire smoke as the creature she had seen. She couldn't stop herself as she flew towards him, despite her battle instinct screaming at her to get away. Instead, she swung her swords, both crackling with electricity, in an attempt to shock him, only for Naruto to duck and swing his fist up, slamming it into her chin hard. Ringo went flying and crashed to the ground with a hard thud, barely keeping conscious. Looking up dazed, her eyes widened, seeing Naruto's entire forearm was now enveloped in a deep black gauntlet, looking as if it was made from obsidian. Walking over to the downed girl, Naruto got on one knee, whispering softly, "I'm sorry." And with that, swung his fist down, knocking Ringo out cold. Sighing deeply, Naruto lifted her as gently as possible, leaning her against a rock and setting her swords on her lap. Dismissing his gauntlet in a plume of smoke, he backed away from the unconscious girl before taking off in a sprint, intending to get as far away from the battlefield as fast as possible. He didn't know why, but the Mizukage was after him. He could disappear, but it would just be a short amount of time until someone found him. With that, he knew where he had to and couldn't be happier. "Well. It's about time for me to go home." Naruto smiled, sprinting in the direction of Konoha. XXXX Konoha. Several days later. XXXX. Naruto smiled fondly as he walked down the streets of Konoha, remembering the simpler time that was his childhood. He walked quietly, keeping his hood up in order to keep who he is a secret. It wasn't that he didn't want people to know he was alive and well, it was because he never knew if a Mizu spy was hunting for him. At least that's what he told himself. Sighing softly, Naruto looked up at the Hokage Tower, walking towards it with his hands in his pockets. However, one piece of overheard information made him stop. "Did you hear? That thing attacked again last night. It destroyed a few buildings and then just vanished without a trace. 8 people had to go to the hospital." A villager told his friend, both sitting on a bench drinking tea. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he pondered this information, debating if the villager was just exaggerating to entertain his friend. After all, monsters haven't existed in this part of the world for centuries. Or so he thought, as a loud roar of anger was heard, followed by screaming of numerous people. With a gasp and wide eyes, Naruto sprinted to the sound of the roar, hoping he was wrong about which monster made it. Arriving to the location, he stared in shock at what was before him. A Barith, alive and clearly angry, was rampaging through the market district. It roared, swinging its massive head, attempting to smash any people or buildings in its way. Meanwhile, Naruto's mind was racing. Why is a Barith here? No monsters should exist on this continent. The shout snapped him out of his thoughts, turning to see a woman trying to get out of the grip of her husband. "Sue. Run, baby, please." Turning his head, his eyes widened, seeing the Barith charging towards a little girl, frozen in fear with tears streaming down her face. As the beast reared up to smash its head onto the small child, she curled up with her arms raised above her head in a vain attempt to protect herself. With a bellowing roar, the monster swung its head down, not hearing the mother's desperate scream to try and stop it. "Uam." The mother stared at the large dust cloud where her daughter once stood, crying hysterically with her husband holding her tight, tears flowing freely down his cheeks. As the dust started to clear, both their eyes widened in shock at the sight before them. Standing over their daughter, as if a guardian angel sent from Kami herself, was Naruto, holding the Barith's massive skull back with a shield, looking as if it was made from bright red scales and black spikes. But the small roar, Naruto then gave a hard push, sending the monster back and dazing it. Turning to the small crying child, giving her a small friendly smile. "Hello, little one, are you hurt?" Staring up at the man, Sue shook her head, tears still flowing freely. Naruto smiled at this and put his hand on top of her head, calming the small girl a bit. Good, now I need you to run to your mama and papa, okay? Then I need all of you to get out of here quickly, okay? Nodding, Sue quickly stood up, running to her mother's waiting arms, embracing each other tight before running from the market. Turning back to Bareth, the beast no longer being dazed and roaring angrily at him, Naruto's gaze hardened as the sapphire smoke appeared again, forming into a large blazing red sword, covered in the same scales and spikes as his shield. Raising the sword to eye level, he gave a feral smirk to the monster ready for the beast. Bring it. Haruko sighed, leaning back into her chair, glaring at the mountain of paperwork on her desk. She swore no matter how much she managed to finish, it always remained a mountain, taunting her. Growling softly while her eye twitched, she reached for her pipe, stuffing it with her favorite cherry-flavored tobacco and lighting it with a near-rank fire jutsu. Sighing in content as she savored the flavor, she leaned back, relaxing in her chair. Her small smile dropped as she reached over and took a hold of a framed picture. Haruko looked down sadly as she stared at the picture. It was of her smiling as she enjoyed a bowl of ramen, with Naruto devouring a few bowls with gusto. A small sad smile graced her lips as she remembered the little ball of sunshine whom she loved like a grandson. Ever since the day of his death, she could feel that the village was different. It felt darker and colder, like most of the energy was sucked out of it. It was dull without him running around causing mischief, pulling pranks and shouting how he'd be the first male Hokage. Haruko chuckled softly at the memories Naruto had given her as a tear slid its way down her cheek without her noticing. She remembered his funeral and the immense sorrow it brought to everyone. To many it seemed as if the land and sky even wept at the death of the young man, as storms ravaged Konoha for nearly a week after his passing. Haruko could still remember the faces of the sad and yet enraged Uchiha, the heartbroken sobs of the Hyuga heiress, and the quiet tears shed by visitors from Outworld whom he befriended. Even the leader of Outworld, Shao Kahn, shed silent tears as her lover and daughters cried. They had arrived mere hours after his murder and were just as devastated when they had heard of the crime. While Sindel tried her best to comfort her daughters and their best friend's bodyguards, Shaw nearly let loose her rage on all the males in the village. While Haruko was indeed tempted, she calmed the tyrant down by simply stating how it wouldn't be Naruto's will. That day marked the only time Shao Kahn had ever publicly mourned and cried. Setting the photo down, she sighed heavily before returning to the mountain that she swore doubled in size. Growling, she grabbed a first piece of paper to get it over with. Skimming over it, she realized it was a report of the damages made by an unknown creature last night. Humming softly to herself, she read a description of it, frowning at its sheer absurdity. From now on, I need to make sure that the Kunoichi don't interview drunks when making any reports. Sighing, Haruko filed that away and continued on with the rest of her work, praying that she will finish it before her impending doom. Keeping a good pace, Haruko started making a dent in the mountain, purging sheet after sheet from it. She smiled, somewhat enjoying the quiet as she worked. Lady Hokage. One for her personal Anbu, Nico, burst into the room, startling the elderly woman. Clutching her chest and breathing raggedly, she looked to Nico, waiting for her to continue. Forgive me, my lady, but the creature that attacked last night has been spotted destroying the market district until a warrior started to fight against it. Haruko nodded. Standing up, she marched out the door with Nico and a squad of Anbu to protect her. Turning to the purple-haired woman, Haruko spoke in a tone of absolute authority. I want any and all civilians treated immediately, and search and rescue teams to scan through the rubble. And who is the Kunoichi that is fighting this beast? Nico shifted slightly, unsure how to inform her cage before taking a deep breath and replying as calm as possible with, all due respect, my lady, no Kunoichi is fighting it. From several eyewitnesses it appears a man is not only fighting but winning as well. This caused the elderly woman to turn to her subordinate with wide eyes. She didn't believe what Nico had told her, but a nod from the woman made Haruko think. Sure, there have been some males throughout history who made legendary bounty hunters and mercenaries, such as the notorious Jango Fett before his mysterious disappearance, but for a man to take on the creature that has been described intrigued her. Hardening her gaze, she nodded to her subordinate as they exited the building when another Anbu appeared next to her. Lady Third, the creature is now running towards Training Ground 6, with the unknown warrior leading it there. Nodding, Haruko took to the rooftops with her Anbu following closely behind, unaware of what would be uncovered when they reached the training grounds. But Naruto, earlier. The Bareth roared in fury, charging the hooded blonde at top speed, fully intending to crush him where he stood. He smirked at the charging brute and readied his shield, blocking the beast attack as it sent him skidding back slightly. Grunting and rolling his shoulder a bit, Naruto placed his sword in front before charging the beast. Onlookers were stunned by the boy's speed, as it easily rivaled that of a jounin before swinging the blade and cutting the monster under its chin. The Bareth threw its head back, bellowing in pain, before slamming its bony skull down where Naruto once stood. Naruto slashed at one of the Bareth's legs, bringing another shrill cry out from the monster, before it pivoted suddenly. Anchoring itself, the Barith lunged aside at him, slamming Naruto hard in the back and flinging him into a nearby wall. Naruto grunted lightly as his body made contact with the wall before landing on the floor with a thud. Standing and shaking his head lightly, he dodge-rolled to the side to avoid another head smash from the large brute. Planting one of his feet firmly in the ground, Naruto thrust his blade forward, stabbing the beast in its neck, causing a small spray of blood to splash over Naruto's clothes. The beast bellowed in pain, swinging its tail around and smashing into Naruto's side. Thankfully, the boy had seen the attack coming and brought his shield up in time to block the strong attack. Pulling the red blade out, he slashed the beast once more, causing it to stagger back slightly before it hit him again with another hip check. Grunting as he landed on his back, Naruto looked up only for the massive beast to stomp down on him hard. Coughing up blood, Naruto glared at the Barith before stabbing it in its calf, bringing another bellow of pain as the beast stepped off him. Wiping some blood away, he stared down the angered monster before charging again, only to leap high into the air. The Barith looked up before stomping one foot down and swinging its heavy club at the hunter, only for it to be parried by his shield. Naruto then thrust his sword down, cutting deep into the monster's tail. Falling back, blue smoke started to cover his full body, obscuring him from the raging monster. A strong gust of wind blew, dispersing the smoke, showing Naruto was now covered in strange armor. He resembled a medieval knight with a crowned helmet, a shen grey plate armor with glowing orange accents, and deep purple scales covering his chest and draping down from his waist, covered by two belts crossing over one another, Zora Alpha armor. Cracking his neck, Naruto planted a foot behind him before sliding his red blade into his shield. Fire burned from the shield and blade as it seemed to charge mass amounts of power. The Barith growled deeply before charging angrily with a roar. Smirking under his helm, Naruto swung his blade, causing the shield to rotate down, forming an oversized axe head, before he slammed the weapon down, causing pillars of fire to burst from the ground, knocking the charging beast over. Jumping back from the scorched earth, Naruto looked over the bleeding monster, causing his smirk to slowly drop. He had been too lost in thought or too busy thinking of ways to defeat the beast to notice, but he could see each of the creature's ribs along with several angry red sores littered its body. Lowering his weapons, he finally understood why the Barith had attacked in the first place. The poor creature was starving, and there must not have found any mud puddles to protect its skin from the harsh sun. Looking down as the beast raised itself to its feet, Naruto then shocked the onlookers even more by dropping his sword and shield, causing them to disperse in a plume of sapphire smoke. The Barith stared him down, shaking slightly as the armored blonde lowered himself and slowly started to approach the monster. Roaring defensively, the Barith stepped back as the hunter calmly continued to walk forward, holding his right hand out. The Barith's breathing increased slightly until Naruto placed his hand on its large snout. The pulse of sapphire energy covered the monster, causing the beast to relax and its wounds to begin to heal. Naruto then began to walk backwards as the Barith followed him, slowly causing the civilian's eyes to widen considerably. Turning to face the closest to him, an elderly man whom carried a cane, Naruto spoke to him. "Which way to the closest training grounds?" His voice was deeper and somewhat muffled, but still came off in a proud, regal tone. The old man could only shakingly point to his left, watching as the armored warrior nodded and began to lead the massive creature away. As Naruto slowly led the monster to the training ground, civilians and Kunoichi both stared in awe as this random man not only calmed this rampaging beast, but walked it as if he had raised it from birth. Many tired to follow them, only to be stopped by Kunoichi as they knew it could possibly go wrong fast and someone could end up hurt or dead. Upon entering the training grounds, Naruto walked the tired monster to a heavily shaded area, letting it lay down in the shade. Petting its snout gently, Naruto then walked close to the lake, noting how the ground had a large dirt patch. Sapphire smoke once again appeared in front of him as he reached into it, pulling out a massive silver hammer with black accents, as well as several large vents at the back, Reinhardt's classic hammer, but modeled after Volstrack's. Humming softly, Naruto waded into the lake until the water came up to his waist. Clutching his hammer with both hands, he pulled it back as red and black flames started spraying from the vents. His armor began to give off a faint glow as the flames increased in size, becoming 3 roaring infernos. Giving a deep guttural roar, he began swinging his hammer, making large waves, before raising it high above his head, before slamming it down, roaring out loudly, "Hammer down." At that cry, a huge wave was sent forward, flooding the training grounds and making it appear as a large muddy swamp. Noticing the change in terrain, the Barith rose weakly before stomping out into the mud fields. Looking to Naruto, the monster snorted loudly before flopping down into the muddy earth. Bellowing happily, the animal began to twist and turn, churning the earth as mud clung to its skin. Laying on its stomach, the Barith seemed to sigh in content after it was fully coated. Naruto began to walk over to the content brute wyvern before lunging back as several kunai and shuriken planted themselves into the ground he once stood. Turning, he readied his hammer before his eyes widened under his helm. At the entrance to the training ground stood Haruko with her squad of Anbu, all with weapons drawn. Haruko glared at the man and the monster as it growled and stood over the man, ready to fight. "I do not know who you are, strange warrior," the old Hokage began, "but I will thank you for stopping further destruction. Now, lay your weapon down and remove your helmet or my Anbu will attack." The Barith growled angrily and took a stomp towards the group, causing them to ready their weapons. However, Naruto placed his hand on the monster's leg, calming it as he walked calmly towards the group. His hammer quickly vanished in a plume of smoke as he stopped a short distance away from the group. Haruko looked the man up and down. For a strange reason she felt her instincts screaming at her to embrace him in a tight hug, and it made her both curious and unnerved. Her thoughts were cut as she heard a soft chuckle coming from the man, still as stern as I remember, "But you have gotten a bit shorter, eh?" Haruko's eyes widened slightly at his voice before narrowing dangerously, and she walked ahead of the group. Standing a few short feet from the man, Haruko asked cautiously, "Who are you?" Her answer was a small chuckle and him being covered in smoke before appearing in his usual clothing, with his hood still covering his face. "Yeah. I guess it has been some time. 7 years to be exact." Haruko and the Anbu's eyes widened as the man slowly removed his hood, revealing his identity to them. "Hey Oba-san. I'm home." Haruko covered her mouth as tears began to form, slowly placing a shaking hand on his cheek. "And Naruto-kun. Is that truly you?" Naruto smiled softly, taking hold of her hand gently, giving her an answer that let her know it was really him. "When I was 8 you took me to the top of the Hokage monument for the first time and taught me about the will of fire. After that I told you that I'd become the strongest and be the first male Hokage." Haruko's eyes widened even more before she quickly enveloped him in a bone-crushing hug. "Naruto-kun." Wincing slightly at the elderly woman's strength, Naruto smiled and wrapped his arms around his grandmother, hugging her close as she cried tears of joy. Their reunion was cut short as the Barith nudged the two from behind, causing Naruto to chuckle. "Naruto, what do you know about this beast? And how have you tamed it so easily?" Naruto chuckled softly as he put a hand on the Barith's snout. "I didn't tame her, Barith are a naturally passive species. I just noticed how she clearly hasn't eaten in a long time and judging from several sores I've seen hasn't been able to wallow in mud in some time." He turned to the Hokage with a small smile, "And I've been living around monsters like this and stronger than this for years. It's only natural I know how to kill them." Haruko snapped her head to face him with wide eyes and was about to ask him something, but one of her Anbu cut her. "Lady Hokage, the crowd is starting to become too large for us to keep back. Should the two of you move this conversation at a more private area?" Nodding, Haruko turned to the thought-dead boy before looking at the Barith. "What do you think we should do with this creature?" The elderly Hokage didn't want any harm to come to the animal, as she understood now why it rampaged through the market, but they couldn't just let it roam around. "Just give me a minute." Naruto smiled, placing both hands on the Barith's snout before taking a deep breath. He smiled widely as his eyes suddenly burst with a bright sapphire glow as a familiar smoke covered his right arm before quickly covered the monster. When the smoke cleared, the Barith had vanished and Naruto panted out lightly, somewhat leaning on wide-eyed Haruko for support. "Now then," Naruto gave them a foxy grin standing at full height. "Shall we go?" Later in the Hokage office. "So," Haruko sighed, rubbing her temples, "after your apparent death, you actually ended up being washed out to sea, make land on a continent no humans know about, and survived among monsters that can breathe fire, conjure lightning and ice, and control the wind." She glanced up at the nodding blonde boy sitting in front of her. In order to avoid him returning from getting out too fast, they used a shunshin to get to her office as fast as possible. After settling down and having some tea brewed, he began to tell her his tale, from meeting Zora and the other elders to him coming back and the predicament he was now in. "And now the Mizukage is after you for an unknown reason." She stopped to sigh sadly. "I am sorry my boy, but due to a certain law, I may have no choice but to hand you over to her." "What? What kind of law is that?" Naruto stared at her with wide eyes. "Sadly, it is part of the Warring States Pact, in which states if any civilian, be they male or female, is wanted in one of the hidden villages is found living in another, they must be immediately turned over." "I am sorry Naruto-kun, but my hands are tied." Haruko and Naruto both looked down, unsure what to do when an idea popped into Haruko's head. "Naruto." The young hunter looked at his grandmother figure with curiosity. "I may have an idea on how you may still be able to stay in the village. But I doubt you like it." Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, but stayed silent in order to hear her out. Seeing he was ready, Haruko sighed again before leaning forward. "In order to prevent you being taken, you would have to become a Kunoichi and swear your loyalty to this village." Naruto stared at the elder Kage with wide eyes. Well, he did indeed want to stay in the village, he was uncertain on if he should become a soldier for it. Staring at the floor in deep thought, he rubbed the wrappings covering his right hand. Staring at them briefly before sighing and standing up, removing his coat showing a heavily scarred left arm, while his right was completely covered in wraps. If I am to become one of the village's nin, then it will be under two conditions. Haruko tilted her head and made a gesture for him to continue. 1. I want to be called a hunter rather than a kunoichi for obvious reasons. And 2. He paused, removing his chest armor and taking a deep breath. Don't tell anyone about this. Haruko raised an eyebrow as she watched the young man take his shirt off, showing more scars than she had ever seen on anyone. She looked at him confused as he stared to undo his wrappings, letting them fall to the floor. Haruko gasped with wide eyes as she looked at his arm, as instead of flesh and bone, it appeared to be made purely from crystal. Walking over to him, she placed a hand on his shoulder as the other traced down to ensure it wasn't a genjutsu. Looking at him with concern, her met her eyes before looking down. A scar I'm not proud of. I don't like people knowing about it because of how they look at me after they find out. Nodding and understanding, Haruko went to sit down again while Naruto reapplied his wraps and put his clothes back on. It was then Haruko decided it was time he knew. Naruto-kun, she did not meet his eyes. Tell me. Do you know anything of your parents? At that he shook his head in confusion before she continued. That is because it is an S-rank secret, something they asked for you not to know until you were old enough. And I believe you are ready for the truth now. Naruto sat down across from his grandmother figure, nervous to finally learn who his parents were and why their identities were a secret. Naruto-kun, your parents were two of the finest kunoichi this village had ever produced. Incredible warriors, caring people, and loved by almost everyone. Haruko took a deep breath as she prepared to drop the bomb on him. Your parents were none other than Kushina Uzumaki and Minako Namikaze. Naruto's eyes went wide as he stared at the elderly Kage in disbelief. His parents were two of the strongest kunoichi the world had ever seen, and they died just so that he could live. Placing his hands on his head, he breathed deeply to try and keep calm before he asked something he needed to know. Did they? He was silenced by Haruko putting her hand on his shoulder with a loving smile on her face. Naruto-kun. They loved you more than anything and wanted to have you. They didn't die, they sacrificed themselves so that you may live. Tears started to form in Naruto's eyes as he listened, smiling sadly, knowing that they did love him, despite him being born male. He wiped his eyes and stood up, walking over to the window, looking out at the village. He clenched his fist and smiled widely, turning to his grandmother figure. Well then, it's about time I start making them proud. When do I get my headband? Haruko smiled and stood hugging the boy, smiling softly. So much like your mother's. But my boy, she placed her hand gently on his cheek, they're already proud of you. I know they are. Walking back to her desk, she pulled out a scroll with a Uzumaki crest on it and handed it to him before taking a piece of paper and writing an address down, handing it to him. This is the address to their home, as well as your inheritance. Go and get some rest, my boy, I'll send an anbu for you in the morning. Nodding, Naruto hugged her tight before thanking her. Pulling his hood over, he wished her a good night before exiting the office. Naruko smiled happily before sitting back in her chair. Looking out at the night sky, she summoned a few of her anbu, turning to face them and speaking in a voice that left no room for argument. Bring me the clan heads and elders for an emergency council meeting. If they give you any trouble, tell them it is a direct order with no room for argument. Dismissed. As the anbu nodded and left to retrieve the clan heads, Haruko began to walk to the council meeting room, eager to see all the clan's reactions to the news. Naruto-kun. Things are going to become very interesting from here on out. No offense, Hokage-sama, but please tell me just why the fuck you sent anbu to pick us up for a meeting in the middle of the night. A very angry Tsume Yuzuka roared. Her brown spiky hair was more messy than normal due to the previously mentioned anbu waking her and the other clan heads up in the middle of the night. Her animal-like eyes twitched slightly in annoyance, partly from the lack of sleep but also from her not being able to change out of her sleeping clothes. Said clothes consisted of nothing more than a tight gray shirt and a black thong. I must agree with Tsume-san here, Hokage-sama, Asahi Hyuga stated, trying to cover some of her more intimate areas through her see-through, white silk nightgown. I do indeed apologize for the inconvenience, however something rather important happened after our earlier meeting with the civilian council. She paused to let some suspense set in before a rather loud snore cut her off. Deadpanning, she turned to look at the source of said noise, the sleeping head of the Nara clan, Shikiko. This caused Haruko's eye to twitch slightly as she had been rather excited to announce Naruto's return from the grave, however she was also a bit nervous and hesitant to make such an announcement. This was due to certain members of the clan heads being what Haruko would describe as overly affectionate to the young blonde. However, she decided it would be better for them to learn now, rather than on their own. Sighing softly, she once again spoke. Inoko, if you would be so kind. Inoko Yamanaka, a mature woman with platinum blonde hair held in a high ponytail and sky blue eyes, wearing deep purple pajamas that hugged her body, smirked. Leaning over, she proceeded to pinch Shikiko's nose and waited for a short time before said Nara head shot up, gasping for air. Turning her head to her former teammate, whom was laughing quite loudly, with a glare before feeling the Hokage's eyes on her. Shikiko blushed sheepishly and before muttering a small apology to the aged cage. Clearing her throat, Haruko took a deep breath before smiling softly. Now then, the reason I called you all here. She paused, clearing her throat again. A small tear of happiness rolled down her cheek. She barely managed to get her voice above a whisper. He's alive. Haruko? Dainier looked at her friend with a bit of worry. Smiling, Haruko held her head up high and spoke loudly this time, joy overflowing in her voice. He's alive. Naruto Uzumaki is alive and has returned home. At her statement, the collective jaws of everyone in the room dropped to the ground. Initially they doubted her claim or believed her to be under some sort of genjutsu, but those doubts were quickly thrown out the window by the absolute joy in Haruko's voice and a smile on her face that only Naruto was able to cause. He's alive. Tsume jumped to her feet, a smile threatening to split her face in half. Where has he been? Is he well? An uncharacteristically energetic Asahi asked. How handsome is he? Inoko asked, some light drool hanging from the side of her mouth. Haruko's sweat dropped heavily at Inoko's question, as did several others. Maybe I shouldn't tell them about the Mizukage or the fact he kills monsters. No, it will be worse if they find out on their own. Haruko held her hand up calmly, which caused the heads to stop and wait to listen to the elderly leader. Taking a deep breath, Haruko braced herself. Now then, as many of you know, we have been receiving more and more reports of strange creatures appearing and causing quite the high amount of damage. One such creature was seen rampaging in the market district today, before an armored warrior fought it to a standstill, before pacifying the creature. She paused as many of the clan heads nodded in slight confusion, as they were unsure what this had to do with Naruto returning. Shikiko and Asahi, however, seemed like they were starting to connect the dots as Haruko spoke one more. You see, the warrior in question was none other than Naruto himself. The clan heads and elders stared at the Hokage with wide eyes and mouths hung open, expecting the last part to be some sort of joke. However, judging from the stern look on her face, they knew Haruko was not pulling their legs. You see, Haruko started once more. After Naruto was attacked, he managed to cling to life before being saved. Not by any human, but instead by another type of monster known as an elder dragon, beings of immense power often seen as walking natural disasters. Said monster then took him to a place no other human is allowed to set foot, and there he lived, trained, fought, and killed for the past 7 years. She took a short pause to let that info dump set in, as well as enjoy the shocked look on all the clan heads' faces. But now he has returned in trouble. May I ask what kind of trouble, Hokage-sama? The Aburam clan head asked. She wore a dark pair of shades hiding her eyes as well as her normal sleeping clothes, a tight black sports bra and a black G-string. Sighing softly, Haruko continued. It appears that the Mizukage had sent someone to attack Naruto, for what reason we are unsure of. Her sentence was cut off by mass amounts of Kai which chilled the room considerably, almost to the point Haruko could see her breath. And who, may I ask, did this crime? The Akamichi clan head, a plump woman with wine-red hair and purple markings on her face, asked. Her traditional sleeping yukata swayed a bit erratically. Haruko gulped slightly before glaring hard at the council. Said glare was one of strength and authority, telling the clans to calm down before she makes them calm down. Now I will be keeping the identity of said attacker a secret for now. But know that due to the Warring States Pact, I have no choice but to give Naruto to the Mizukage. The clan heads launched to their feet and started screams of protest until Haruko held her hand up to silence them. That is, I thought I would until young Naruto decided to join Konoha's military forces as a hunter. Lady Third, are you certain that is the best course of action? A concerned Asahi asked. Haruko merely smiled at her, calmly nodding her head. Indeed I am. And I know you all are unsure of his abilities, I won't lie, I am as well. Which is why I have arranged for him to showcase them tomorrow morning at Training Ground 7. He has already agreed and I do hope to see you all there. Now then, Haruko paused, letting out a loud yawn. This meeting is over. Go home and rest. I hope to see you all tomorrow at the training grounds. But that the elderly Cage stood and left the room, not noticing the many looks of excitement of the clan heads' faces. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. The next morning, with Naruto. Naruto's eyes fluttered open at the sound of birds outside his window. Smiling softly, Naruto sat up, causing the blankets to slide down his shirtless form. Looking out the window, Naruto watched as 2 birds sang together on a branch outside the window. After he had taken a quick walk around his new home, he decided to go to bed early, claiming the master bedroom for his own. The room itself was large, with a futon that honestly felt way too big for just Naruto to sleep in. It also had a spacious personal bathroom and several empty dressers, reminding Naruto to go clothes shopping at some point in the near future. The library was utterly massive, causing Naruto's jaw to drop when he first saw it, as there were shelves among shelves of scrolls and books. The house also had a decently large bathhouse holding his own private hot springs, mimicking nature exactly, making him feel almost as if he was in the new world when he first set eyes upon it. However, there was one room that, when he discovered it, almost made the young man burst into tears. It was the room meant for him as a baby, complete with bright blue walls, custom furniture, several pictures of Minako and Kushina, and a large baby blue banner hanging on the wall reading "Welcome Home Naruto" in bright gold letters. When he first laid eyes on it, he teared up instantly. He knew his Oba-san wasn't lying to him when she said that his parents loved him, but seeing the room they had prepared for him as a baby cemented the fact they would have loved him regardless of his gender. After wiping some tears, he had dropped to his knees and gave a small prayer, telling his mothers that he would make them proud and that he loved them. Standing, he decided to get dressed in his usual attire before brushing his teeth and going to the kitchen for a large meal of wyvern eggs, mosswine bacon, and an apple. After finishing his abnormally huge amount of food, seriously, how do hunters eat as much as they do? Naruto slipped on his combat boots and left his new home, ready to show Konoha just what he had in store. Training Ground 7, later. Haruko smiled softly as she and Dainieri chatted about various things on their way to Training Ground 7. Following them and talking among themselves were the clan heads, each wondering about Naruto and his return. When the group arrived at the training grounds, they saw what looked like a war zone, with trees either uprooted, snapped in half or burning, large gashes in the earth, and several scorch marks spread out over the ground. They all stared in shock, wondering what caused this when a loud shrill screech cut their line of thinking off. Before anyone could ask what made that noise, a person wearing armor flew into their view. The armor had a red and black scale-like pattern on the abdomen, large spiked shoulder pads, an armored skirt and a helmet that gave off the impression of long spiky red hair with large black spikes in the front as well as covered their face, Rathalos armor. Haruko smiled at the stranger, who quickly got to their feet, shaking off any dirt that attached itself to them. Before Haruko could say anything, a large monster, one that resembled a snake and a wolf crossbred, walked out of the brush. Spotting the group, it roared loudly, its white fur standing up, and electricity seemed to appear from nowhere around it. Seeing the beast charge, the group stood firm, bracing themselves to fight this strange creature, when the armored warrior jumped between the group and monster. Seeing the figure stand in front of the group caused the monster to dig its claws into the ground, slowing it until the beast stood before the warrior. In response, the monster stared down at the person before closing its eyes and pressing its head against the figure's head. Haruko couldn't help but chuckle softly, not just at the monster's sudden mood shift, but also at the awestruck looks from the clan heads. Smirking slightly, Haruko decided to speak up. "I see you decided to start training early, Naruto-kun." The clan head snapped to look at her, then back to the newly revealed Naruto, who was currently petting the snake-wolf hybrid. Giving an awkward chuckle, Naruto spoke up, surprising the clan heads with how regal his voice was. "Yes, sorry about that, but Toby here enjoys our little spars early in the morning." The monster, Toby apparently, hissed softly in agreement before sitting back on its haunches and tilting its head at the group. Giving a soft giggle, Haruko waved him off, smiling fondly before leading the group to a non-destroyed part of the training grounds. "Then by all means do continue. Don't mind us." She sat down, urging the group to follow her lead, which they did as they were all curious to see Naruto fight this monster. Rolling his shoulders, Naruto turned to the beast and gave a "come at me" gesture. "Show me what you got, Kadachi." At that, the monster roared again, sparking lightning around it, and charged Naruto, who easily sidestepped and swung his fist at the blue monster. Said creature jumped away before his fist could connect, causing it to hit the ground and make a small crater. Quickly pulling it back, Naruto jumped away from the spot he was, narrowly avoiding a tail slam from the electric-charged monster. Toby followed the slam with a quick swipe, which Naruto ducked under before placing his hands on the ground. He then lifted his legs and pushed off the ground, vaulting himself at the monster at high speeds. The Toby attempted to dodge, but could only move the blow to its abdomen rather than its head. Growling, the snake wolf then jumped high in the air before diving at the armored blonde. Before the impact, the monster pulled back, causing wing-like skin flaps to catch it and slow it dramatically. Naruto's eyes narrowed under his helm as he watched the charged-up monster suddenly dive at him again, only at increased speeds. The only thing Naruto could do is let the attack hit him head-on, causing him to grunt loudly. That grunt then turned into a scream as he felt volt after volt of electricity surge through his system. The clan heads cringed at hearing him, some of which attempted to jump in and save the blonde ball of sunshine. Haruko merely released a small burst of Kai to squash those attempts as she kept a stern face, watching as the fight played out. She was indeed very worried about the boy, but she did know that he could tank what the Toby Kadachi was giving out and more. When Naruto had stopped his screams, she knew she was right. The group watched shocked, no pun intended, as Naruto wrapped his arms around the monster's neck and began to lift the bigger creature up. Grunting loudly and holding the monster tight despite it thrashing wildly, Naruto then let out a roar of his own and slammed the monster's head into the ground hard. The monster rolled over dazed, causing Naruto to capitalize on the opportunity and jump on top of the beast. A familiar sapphire smoke covered Naruto's left arm and his right hand, clearing to reveal a simple metal shield and a large short sword, hunter's knife Aka the base sword and shield weapon. Panting slightly, Naruto held the sword to Tobi's throat, the tip of the blade pressed against the monster's soft underside. Smirking slightly, Naruto pulled back and sheathed the blade before jumping off the monster. Said monster proceeded to roll over and get to its feet groggily. 2 small puffs of sapphire smoke appeared in his hands, clearing away to reveal 2 jars filled with a strange green liquid. Smoke once again appeared, this time covering Naruto's helmet before clearing and showing his face to the clan heads. Several jaws dropped upon seeing the semi-feral looking blonde as he smiled at the blue snake wolf. Some of the clan heads, unconsciously started to preen themselves, wanting to look as good as possible for the young hunter. Naruto pet Tobi's snout gently before the monster opened its maw, to which Naruto poured the green liquid into. Naruto patted the monster's snout before popping his own jaw open and greedily downing its contents. He smiled after finishing his drink. He dropped the empty jars, causing them to disperse before they hit the ground. Turning, he gave his signature foxy grin to the group, sending various lewd thoughts through a few of their minds. "Well, I certainly wasn't expecting all of you to come, but I am happy to see you all again," Naruto said, keeping his foxy grin while looking at the group. Tsume seemed to recover the fastest, giving the young hunter a smile of her own. "Well, damn Gaki. When Hokage-sama said you could take monsters down one-on-one, I honestly thought she had started to lose it." Her words provoked a few giggles from the group and one glaring Haruko, causing Tsume to gulp, sweating lightly. The Tobi Kadachi tilted its head watching the group. It was unsure what to make of them, as most monsters had a natural weariness towards humans. However, the group seemed to be friendly with Naruto, so for now Tobi would trust its friend. Naruto patted the larger creature's neck, gently sensing its nervousness. "Aba-chan, would you like to meet my friend here?" Naruto smiled towards his elder, causing her eyes to widen slightly before she calmly stood up and started walking towards the two. Seeing this caused Tobi's pupils to become slits and it growled at the approaching woman, causing the group to be slightly on edge until Naruto placed a hand on the monster's snout. "It's okay, Kadachi, I trust all of them with my life." Hearing the young man say that caused many of the clan heads to smile fondly, remembering when he was just a young boy. Haruko continued her approach as calmly as she could when she started to reach her hand out shakingly towards the electric monster. Seeing her nervousness, Naruto smiled softly before gently taking her shaking hand and guiding it towards where his was placed on the monster's snout. This action caused a few jealous stares to be directed at the aged Kage, whom paid them no mind as she was focused on what was in front of her. Naruto smiled softly and placed Haruko's hand over his before removing it and letting his grandmother in all but blood touch the snake wolf. Haruko gasped lightly as her hand felt the warm scales of the monster before her, rubbing her hand gently along its snout. Smiling at the monster before her, she slowly removed her hand and turned to Naruto, who was stroking the monster's neck affectionately. "Naruto-kun, this Tobi Kadachi, would it happen to be the apex predator of its environment?" Naruto looked at her before chuckling softly and shaking his head. "Nah, Tobi here is probably more towards the middle of the food chain. There are monsters that far exceed him in power, be it raw physical strength or elemental abilities." Haruko hummed softly at that revelation, already suspecting that there were tiers of monsters if what Naruto had told her of the elder dragons were true. But two things did need confirmation for her, "Naruto-kun. These elder dragons. Are they the absolute strongest of all monsters?" Naruto paused and looked down before sighing softly. "Yes and no. While it is true that elder dragons do have near unimaginable power, there are some monsters that can rival and even kill them in a fight. They gain titles themselves. The Black God, the White God, Deviance, Ecosystem Devourer, Furious One, and Rage Made Flesh are a few. I've fought them during my travels in the New World and let me say, those titles were earned. I nearly died in each battle against them." Those words and his grim tone sent a harsh shiver down the group's backs. Just thinking of monsters that could fight one-on-one with creatures labeled as walking natural disasters was terrifying. And I see. Well, that did clear up everything then. Now Naruto-kun. Haruko paused, extending her hand out to Naruto. "Welcome to Konoha's forces as a Takebetsu Jonin." Naruto's eyes went wide hearing what title he had received, as he was expecting to start as a genin, chunin at most. Though when he thought back, considering something like a Rajang could probably kill a battalion of Anbu with little to no problem, it did start making more sense to him. Side note: imagine a Jang v Brachi fight turf war and all the carnage it would bring. Smiling widely, he dispelled his armor and patted Tobi's head gently before his eyes started to glow with power and the beast was covered in sapphire smoke, sending it back to its home. "Well," Naruto smiled at the group, placing his hands on his hips, "now that my rank is figured out, I vote we go celebrate. Ramen on me. Who's in?" With that small laughs broke out in the group, of course the blonde knucklehead would go and celebrate with his favorite food. Minako glared out at the monster that had been wreaking havoc and destroying several training grounds. A team of herself, wife Kushina, clan heads and several Anbu had managed to corner the beast in one of the still intact training fields, but none of their jutsu seemed to cause little more than slight discomfort for their enemy. And to make matters worse, two of her Anbu, her daughters at that, had become pinned by the monster's bulk. The standoff was tense as the monster held the two beneath its massive foot, threatening to crush their bodies at any moment. Add to that its impressive antlers kept the others at bay, managing to rip boulders from the earth like pebbles. She swallowed dryly and grit her teeth. This thing was taking everything they had to throw and then some. She kept her eyes peeled scanning for an opening, anything they could use to get the beast of her children. She had lost one, her only son, years ago, and she refused to have to go through the grief and angst that was forced upon her family that fateful day. It was only due to her eyes briefly glimpsing behind the monster she noticed a figure walking towards the group. She couldn't make out anything other than that the figure was tall, standing at roughly 6'6" and covered by a long dark purple hooded cloak. She couldn't explain why, but there was an aura around the figure, giving off a feeling of immense strength and power which unnerved her. The others of the group seemed to take notice as well, some shivering from the dark aura that seemed to seep into their very bones. The monster's attention snapped to the new figure, causing it to let a bellow out as a warning to the approaching figure. The attempted intimidation failed spectacularly and, if anything, increased the figure's pace towards it. Without warning, a veil of sapphire smoke coated the figure as the screech of a panther rang out, causing the monster's smaller nose horn to flick upwards. In what felt like a blink of the eye, a black blur burst from the smoke, rocketing into the monster's fur-covered hide and knocking it over stunned. As quickly as the blur shot forward before it grabbed both of the girls and sprang towards the group, setting them both down gently. It was only then that the group got a look at the figure before them and noticed they had changed significantly. The long feathered tail ending in what looked like an impressive spike came from their rear, and their arms now had clawed hands and large bladed wings. However, two things especially drew the group's attention, one being that the figure was a male judging from the build. The second being two piercing red lights serving as eyes as shadows covered the man's face from view. Before any words could be spoken, the group noticed the monster had now recovered and was getting back to its feet ready to brawl. Sparing a quick glance at both Minako and Kushina before turning around, the figure then ran, jumping onto a large spiked boulder that had been ripped up earlier. Landing near soundlessly, the man then flung his coat to the side. Several pairs of eyes widened as the man was shown. He wore a tight black sleeveless armored zip-up shirt, as well as baggy red and black camouflage pants, foregoing shoes showing his feet were now clawed as well. His long blonde hair stuck out wildly in a spiked mane, with two small braids coming down from behind his ears, which now stuck out to the side resembling black cat ears. Turning his head to the group caused Minako and her family's eyes widened and tears began to well. Two bright sapphire eyes shone back at them and 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. A fanged smile came from him before turning back towards the monster and letting out a roar resembling a panther. Minako and her family stared in disbelief as the man lunged towards the charging brute. Their son brother, long thought murdered, was now charging head first into battle with a monster. What if Naruto King of Monsters in Monster Hunter end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.